Here in the U.S., 3 former players from the University of South Carolina, including Destiny Littleton, who played 1 season at USC here in L.A., are trapped in Jerusalem, where they are playing in a professional league. Since the conflict started on Saturday, air travel in and out of Jerusalem and throughout Israel has been shut down. Because Israel joined the U.S. in the battle against Iran, Iran has been firing missiles into Israel. Littleton posted a message on social media on Monday saying she could hear bombs falling in the distance. She and the 2 other U.S. players are staying at a teammate's house and staying indoors. The players and other U.S. citizens are stuck in Israel until commercial air travel resumes, and that could be a while. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I believe that we will go from guttermost to uttermost. I believe that we will go from slave ship to championship. I believe that we will go from outhouse to state house to courthouse to White House. I believe.
He served alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He ran for president. He kept hope alive for millions of fellow citizens. This Friday, March 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 will carry the homegoing services of the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. live from Chicago, beginning at 8 a.m. Pacific. Join us as we say farewell to a giant, a preacher, a warrior, a man who never stopped fighting for justice. The homegoing service of Reverend Jesse Jackson, this Friday, live starting at 8 a.m. Pacific, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hold your head high, stick your chest out. It gets dark sometimes, but the morning comes. Don't you surrender. When you hold on and hold out, keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
First things first.
Things first, it's the DU General, Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule. 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not to unsettle you. Let's go. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DePrima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DePrima. Go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DePrima. The show is called First Things First, and my very first thing today and every day is prayer, giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and let's go. Man almighty, do we have a full day around here, and that is absolutely a good thing always. It's going to be an amazing Women's History Month. I some things I can't tell you yet, but they're exciting. And so you want to stick around here and find out what's happening. The way we do things on Wednesday is called Wealth Building Wednesday. Hour one, we look local, what's going on in the left coast side of town as it connects to the whole universe. Hour two, we start off the hour with our wealth builder, a spotlight on a BIPOC-owned, Black-owned, woman-owned, or local socially innovative business. All those are in the spotlight. We do that top of hour two on Wednesday, and then we'll open up the phone lines. They're always open, but we do freestyle phones in hour two. Then hour three today, we do a deep dive on a person or persons of interest. Top of the hour, our first half, we are looking forward to hearing from attorney Ben Crump. Bottom of the hour, we are going to take a look at the Supreme Court decision yesterday regarding California's, which was going to be a nationwide impact, California's rules regarding transgender youth. The Supreme Court, the extreme court weighing in, and we're going to weigh back in on this end. So we got a busy day, and that's a good thing. Joining me in the studio right now is the founder and chief architect of something called Social Good Solutions. Seems to be in line with our Wealth Building Wednesday mission. She has this organization, which is a Black woman-led, racial justice-centered one. It transforms equity from concept into operational practice. She's going to let us know what exactly that means. Strategy, convenings, and storytelling. They mobilize philanthropy, nonprofits, and policymakers. And we're going to find out about that and how things look right now in the nonprofit social good landscape, because it's a little bumpy on all the landscapes right now. Kaci Patterson, welcome in.
Hi, Dominique. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for coming. So what does that really mean? Social good solutions. It sounds nice, benevolent, and working with nonprofits. Lord knows most nonprofits need support and resources. But what does that look like in a nuts and bolts kind of way?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to just thank you for your prayer to start us off, acknowledging the ancestors today. March 4th is my grandmother's birthday. She would have been 96 today.
Oh,
she passed
wow.
away in 2022. So I just want to bring her into the space with me this morning.
What's your grandma's name?
Ada Carol Henderson.
Ada Carol Henderson is in the building.
Ada in the house. So I want to just thank her for her inspiration in my life and just celebrate her this morning on what would have been her 96th birthday.
Wow.
So Social Good Solutions, I really named the company what I wanted to see in the world. I wanted to see solutions for the social good. And how we animate that is through the intersection of philanthropy, racial justice, and community. So our work is really about advancing community-driven change, which means that the solutions that we know exist in community don't often get translated into philanthropy. And so our work is about helping those solutions to get translated into philanthropy so they can be resourced, they can be funded, and the Black leaders who are really designing those solutions for folks in our community can be elevated and lifted up and seen for the innovative experts that they are.
It sounds a little bit like bringing two different worlds together.
It absolutely is. And it's really interesting. It's always very interesting to me because the relationship between philanthropy and the nonprofit sector is really a symbiotic one. One cannot exist without the other, and yet they're really two different worlds in a lot of ways. So a lot of what we do at the firm is about translating. I feel like so much gets translated, lost in translation, I should say, between communicating community speak and philanthropy speak. And this was never more apparent to me than in 2020 when we started working with the LA County Department of Public Health when they were launching at the time African American Infant and Maternal Mortality Prevention Initiative. Affectionately, we call it the AIM Prevention Initiative. And there was this idea that they wanted to start a community fund They wanted to have an innovative fund that would really fund and support community-led solutions around Black infant and maternal health. They sort of knew that these innovative solutions are already existing in community, but because the Department of Public Health is so focused on clinical care, they really didn't have a way to fund and resource the community work. And so an organization that I've worked with for the past 15 years, it's a local funder collaborative that's focused on the early years called the LA Partnership for Early Childhood Investment. We started working with the Department of Public Health to design and stand up what is now called the Village Fund. And the first year of working in that relationship, it was all translation. It was understanding what the county was saying, how that was being interpreted in philanthropy, how that was being interpreted in community. I often describe the sort of translation role as sort of understanding the difference between hello, hola, and ciao. It's basically the same word, but the cultural context in which it is spoken, it might mean something different. And so you need a translator to know when ciao means hello or when it means goodbye. And so a lot of the work that we do at Social Good Solutions is helping to do that translation between community and philanthropy so that resources can flow more effectively to Black-led organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's especially true with the county, because they like to talk in acronyms.
Oh,
You know,
alphabet
and if you're a
soup.
community member, it's the this why, this is, and everything has an acronym. And for some reason, we don't ever say it, like spell it out.
And that happens in community too. So we use our acronyms. Philanthropy uses acronyms. So it's a bit alphabet soup, you know. And so being able to have someone who understands what each one is saying and how to draw the connections is so much of the work that we do. And to do it in a way that is culturally intelligent, that centers the leadership of Black folks who are innovating every single day, you know, solving problems in our communities, for our communities, and being able to translate that up into replicable, scalable solutions that philanthropy can and should fund. That's a lot of what Social Good Solutions does.
And when you talk about translation, I feel like, and we talk about this a lot on the show, I feel like from what I've seen with my eyes, a lot of the organizations that are really in the streets doing the work, it's more than just that they don't know how to communicate. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have even the staffing to do all of the paperwork and all of the compliance stuff that big organizations like the county and some philanthropic organizations expect. You might have two or three mamas whose kids have been murdered that are helping other mamas whose kids have been murdered. They're not administrators. But then what, in my observation, you have these big corporate nonprofits that have entire departments that do grants and development and this and that. And you've got a little mom and pop community organization that's competing with them for funding. When we look at the impact in terms of that block or that neighborhood, the 2 and 3 mommies is probably having more influence in making a bigger change in that community.
Absolutely. And so in our sector, we call this quote unquote capacity building, right? Where we're trying to help these organizations build infrastructure, back office support, so on and so forth. I actually don't like that term, because the capacity that they have or don't have is often seen as their fault. And the reality is that there's data going back to 2011 that talks about the ways in which Black-led organizations in particular have been systemically underfunded. So this quote-unquote lack of capacity is not because there's a lack of talent. It's not because there's a lack of community wisdom. It's because they haven't been resourced to build their organizational infrastructure. And quite frankly, to be honest, some of them don't want to. Some of them don't want to actually build large organizations. They want to do sort of hand-to-hand community community work, and that's okay. But still being able to have the infrastructure to receive philanthropic dollars to be able to do that community work. I think it's really important for organizations to understand who they want to be in community. Do you want to be, a long-standing organization that has lots of infrastructure, or do you want to be more grassroots? And both are legitimate and both deserve to be funded. But when we talk about quote-unquote capacity, to me, it's really about how do we help organizations be strong, be durable, be able to withstand the sort of shifts and weather the storms of change. And that is not the fault, if you will, of Black-led organizations, because they are not the ones deploying the resources. And so a lot of what we have to do as an organization is to shift the practices in philanthropy so that they can be more, and they are more community-centered. But a lot of times what happens is we don't have the social capital. And because we don't have the social capital, we're not in the same rooms, as the folks with money, as the, folks with,
and
who sort of
as
give out
more
grants.
Corporate, some of the more corporate nonprofits.
That's right.
Who are at those big luncheons and whatever small happy hours
and they
whatever
speak
they
the
are.
language.
Right.
They know how to speak, to philanthropy and so on and so forth. So when we are running initiatives in community, a lot of what we're doing is helping our organizations to close that social gap, because funders will fund who they know and who they trust. Mm-hmm. And if you're not in the room with them, sort of building that relational trust, it's very difficult to get access to those dollars. And so we are helping our Black-led organizations, and we're helping funders, right, to close the social gap and the relational gap between them so that they can build trust and resources can flow to the work that's being led in community.
Kaci Patterson is our guest. If you got a question about your nonprofit or what you see happening with nonprofit social good as they label it, then give me a call, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. I think it's an important conversation for several reasons. Number one, some of our nonprofits are struggling in this environment even more than normal. And number two, we are at the same time in a position of leaning on nonprofits even more because of the fraying of the social safety net that's paid for by our tax dollars. We got a lot coming up, and you are welcome in KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks for starting your morning off with a voice that speaks truth to power and the powerless, getting to the heart of what matters most in our community. This is where authentic conversation meets real action. From breaking news and politics to culture and community solutions, this is where you hear perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. This is where we come together, get informed, and make change happen. You're inside First Things First with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Good morning, sunshine. You make my day. All the women who independent, throw your hands up at me.
This March, we're turning up the volume on the women who changed everything. KBLA Talk 1580 is proud to celebrate Women's History Month, honoring the trailblazers, truth tellers, and game changers who shaped our world, our culture, and our community. From the freedom fighters to the firsts, from the boardroom to the front lines, from the unsung to the unforgettable. All month long, we're celebrating the stories, the voices, and the conversations that remind us that women, Black women, have always led the way. Don't miss a moment. This is our moment. This is our story. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580, Los Angeles' home for the conversations that matter.
I'm your girl, you're my girl, we your girls. Won't you know that we love you?
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic tax relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Your ancestors' favorite radio station. And your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DePrima right
now. It seems like what you're talking about is connecting, philanthropy and community-based organizations, not just connecting them in ways where they are able to maintain sort of a, communication and get people into the same systems. I think it's interesting, though, you said it's not just about the nonprofits, particularly Black-led nonprofits, changing. It's also about entities like the county and funders, foundations, sort of looking at changing their culture, too.
Absolutely.
It's like, would you go to the middle of the Amazon, trying to talk to some, ethnicity that's never been in a city before and hand them a Coca-Cola? No, you wouldn't. You would try to be culturally, competent in that situation. And I think what you're pointing out is that the onus is typically on the community. And, and from a capitalist frame, you say, well, that makes sense. They're asking the foundation for money, so they have to comply with whatever the foundation or whatever the county or the city or whatever wants. But it's also making sense that just as we have systemic barriers built in everywhere else, education, finance, and everywhere else, that they would also be built in philanthropy. So how is that received by these philanthropic and government or other corporate, behemoths?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that when dollars flow into a public system, either the county department, city departments, so on and so forth, those are dollars that belong to the community. The same is true in philanthropy. When funders take a tax exemption to be able to have dollars to do community work, those dollars ultimately belong to the community. So it's not exactly a sort of market capitalist comparison,
right?
Because the dollars belong to community in the first place. And so being able to draw those dollars out of the institutions and into community is exactly the work that we should be doing. And you're exactly right that the way systemic and structural racism works in our broader society, it works in philanthropy. It's philanthropy is not immune, right? Even though it's a sector that is supposed to be about doing good and, sort of benevolence and things of that nature, it is not immune to the broader sort of systemic and social ills that drive so much of the need that we actually see in community. And we can actually trace this back pretty far in terms of the ways in which philanthropy was even established to begin with. There are lots of folks that sort of argue that it was an exploitive system, to begin with, and returning the money to community is, should have been taken out of community to begin with, So there's a lot of arguments sort of around the history of philanthropy. But the role of philanthropy is to fund community work. That is how funders meet their mission. Every single philanthropy has a mission, and every single philanthropy needs a community-based partner in order to meet that mission, because funders fund the work, communities do the work.
Yeah. And also a fair point about those foundations having special status that allows them to use your taxpayer dollar, just as governments do. How interested are they, though, foundations and foundations and government bodies, in becoming more culturally competent in terms of community work? Because it seems like we're in this contraction around that. And it's not just DEI, obviously. It's, there's corporate culture versus community culture, and there's whose work is deemed more important and whose work is deemed, illegal, even though DEI is not against the law.
That's right.
But the way we're moving right now in this country, how interested are these foundations and entities in getting more culturally competent or being more fair? It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, so I would sort of separate interest. So there's this saying that there's a difference between being willing and being able,
Right.
So I would separate their interest in it from their ability to get it done. And what I have found, I've been in this sector for 20 plus years, is that this whole language around equity is fairly new. It really only has a history that's about a decade old. And when you talk specifically about racial equity and racial justice, it's even newer. So it's really only since the murder of George Floyd and the awakenings out of 2020 that happened across the country and across the world, where the language around racial equity and racial justice started to be more precise in philanthropy. And so we're really talking about a 5 or 6 year period, which means that there's not a lot of muscle memory. There's not a lot of operational practice that's been built around how to do structural equity in philanthropy. And so what we need to really push the sector toward is how to move the work of equity from a conceptual space, from an intellectual space, into what is standard operating procedures. And you're right, there has been contraction, and we see this. This is actually very typical, where a lot of times philanthropy can operate sometimes as like humanitarian aid, so a crisis will happen and you'll see a flood of resources come to support that crisis. And after 2 or 3 years, when the headlines are gone and things of that nature, then the funding and the support will wane. That is typical. And then you overlay that with attacks on DEI, with threats to the sector itself, with threats of being sued. And this is not a muscle that folks in philanthropy are used to having to exercise. It's very different in community, right? Because we're always fighting fights. We're always used to having folks come for us and things of that nature. So it's like, listen, we ain't never scared. We always been, in this fight. That's typically not the case in philanthropy. And so again, it's like, how do we build muscle memory within a sector that is not used to talking about, let alone practicing equity at scale? And to me, so that's really where we need to close the gap between what's the difference between being willing and being able to do equity at scale.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's right. But, I feel like what I'm seeing, the report, I guess part of it is, what is the regulatory environment too that I'm talking about, or what is being emphasized? Because it sounds like, and we only have 30 seconds, so we'll address it after news, traffic, and sports. But it sounds like the nonprofit sector and the foundation or funders sector are influenced by trends, by news, by what's popular or unpopular in our country. And so, when you talk about the gap between willing and able, there's also, I think, this factor of what's fashionable. And so, and I've heard some nonprofit folks complaining about how people change their mission to fit the fashion and sometimes end up elbowing out those who have been in the trenches really doing this work, and how others wither and die because they just aren't popular at the moment. How we weather those storms, particularly now. That and more straight ahead on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Colt Gray, father of the Appalachia High School shooting suspect in Winder, Georgia, has been found guilty on all 29 counts tied to the 2024 attack that killed 4. Lead prosecutor Brad Smith explains why the mother wasn't charged.
She did not have custody of Colt. She did not have proximity to Colt, and she was not the one that provided him the firearms.
He's now the third parent convicted after a mass shooting by a child. Bill Cosby is trying to block several women from testifying in a new sexual assault lawsuit. Court filings say he also wants past misconduct claims kept out as Donna Motziger pursues her 1972 assault case. And the University of Colorado is mourning quarterback Dominic Ponder, who died in a single-car crash early Sunday near campus. Police say his vehicle hit a guardrail and tumbled down an embankment. Coach Deion Sanders called Ponder a born leader who was loved and respected. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Visit Hard Rock Casino Tejon for the $500,000 Luck of the Irish BMW drawing. Drawings every Thursday in March. Hard Rock Casino Tejon, the closest casino to downtown LA. The excitement starts here at the new Hard Rock Tejon.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers won their third straight. They beat New Orleans 110-101 Tuesday night at Crypto.com. 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists for Luka Doncic. LeBron had 21 points and 7 assists. The Clippers are at home tonight against Indiana. The Pacers come to town with a 6-game losing streak and the worst record in the Eastern Conference. They were in the NBA Finals last season. The career of the all-time scoring leader in California high school boys basketball came to an end Tuesday night. Inglewood High School star Jason Crow Jr. scored 34 points in Inglewood's 84-65 loss to Damian in the Southern California Division I regional playoffs. Crow's 34 raised his final career total to 4,718 points, the highest all time for boys and girls in California high school hoops. Crow is going to Missouri in the fall. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. These are hard times for housing in America. Too many in our community face barriers to safe housing, behavioral health care, and affirming spaces for healing, particularly those impacted by poverty and stigma or incarceration. Rooted in South LA, AMAD supports impacted communities through housing, wellness, and leadership development. AMAD provides culturally responsive, peer-led support from transitional housing and mental health services to leadership development and youth empowerment. They offer safe, affirming houses for youth, transgender women, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Therapy and peer support with a focus on healing trauma in Black communities. HIV prevention and care, free testing, education, and wraparound services for whole person wellness. Standing in the gap with health, housing, and hope. Reach out to Ahmad Institute at 323-569-1610. That's 323-569-1610. Or visit amaad.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, indeed. We're talking about nonprofits, charitable organizations, as you may think of them, and foundations and funders, whether it be a city, county, or an actual foundation, freestanding foundation. A lot of us navigating those things, and I think a lot of community members don't even. We don't separate it out and say, "Oh, I got this help from this person," or this organization, or I know I could turn to these folks for this thing that we need. But I do think that with the contraction of services and even our safety net, things like food stamps, aka SNAP, shrinking, then who do we turn to? We turn to food banks, we turn to community-based organizations, church nonprofits. That puts more pressure on the nonprofit sector.
Absolutely.
So how do we close that gap, or can we?
So I think of our nonprofits as community first responders, especially in communities of color who don't have, and rightfully so, don't have a history of trusting systems, and rightfully so. And so when needs get exacerbated in community, they usually turn, to your point, to food banks and things of that nature. These are our nonprofit organizations. They are our community first responders. They are part of the infrastructure, the civic infrastructure. We saw this with COVID. They became part of the public health infrastructure of vaccine delivery, testing delivery, so on and so forth. And so the safety net actually includes our nonprofit sectors or our nonprofit organizations. And so my belief is that funding the organizations at the scale that is needed in order for them to serve the function of being a social safety net, we shouldn't be allowing government to basically get this support on the cheap, which is what happens a lot of times when these organizations are receiving public contracts and things of that nature. Oftentimes, they're actually, the way in which public dollars are flowing actually are creating structural deficits, because sometimes they're having to do them on reimbursement basis. And so they're having to front load the government in order to be able to deliver services and then try to chase the money down later. So there are structural issues that exist that there's a lot of advocacy around to try to course correct so that our nonprofits aren't having to subsidize government in a way that's really unfair. It's not right. And it's not actually respecting the role that they play as part of our social safety net.
It's actually not efficient either, actually.
It's terribly inefficient.
It's not an efficient system. It's so unfair that a tiny entity has got to basically loan the government money and then try to get it back.
That's and these are, again, when I'm talking about some of the structural issues that exist. Yeah. This is an example of, how inequity kind of gets baked into the system.
Right.
And you need to be able to have conversations that elevate these things, but you actually also need to have organized constituency to change contracting processes. There's a whole effort that's happening in LA County right now called Equity in Contracting that's really trying to deal with this very issue.
Yeah, which is pretty surprising considering what's happening federally. That, more than likely on a federal level would be deemed illegal by executive order.
Well, I think that's what's really unique about LA in particular is that we have a set of leaders in LA at the county, at the city level that have not only sort of defied and refused to comply in advance, but have actually taken further steps to say, oh, no, we're actually going to go even further and even deeper. I think an example of that is the fact that the county still has a whole department dedicated to anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion. The fact that we have, for example, the exhibit that the city council just erected around Black History Month dedicated to Black women's leadership. So there are examples here in LA where there's a refusal to comply with really what is an illegal order because, to say that we're against diversity, equity, and inclusion is actually an unconstitutional frame, And so to really sort of fly in the face of what's coming down from the federal government is something that I think is very unique to LA. And it's really a product of what I believe has been organized engagement by the nonprofit sector in not only local philanthropy, but in our city and county departments as well. So we have a very organized constituency of nonprofits here in LA that I think is pretty unique to our region and doesn't exist necessarily in other parts of the country at the scale that it does here in Los Angeles.
Well, maybe it will. I mean, we saw that with the gang intervention prevention movement, that it was exported not just to other parts of the country, but to other parts of the world. I asked you about, the sort of trendiness of topics and issues and how some nonprofits, in even some of the big ones, will chase dollars by amending their mission or changing it. And I heard that complaint a lot. I'm still hearing it actually around the Altadena Eaton Fire recovery, that there were big name brand label organizations that came in and said, no, we're fire relief people. And then came and collected all these dollars, and we don't have the ability, or most of us don't know. We may have the ability, but we don't know how to track those dollars, right? So if the Red Cross or the NAACP collects millions and millions of dollars, or the Fire Aid, concert collects, in that case, it was supposedly $100 million. How do we know that helped anyone in Altadena? How do we know that they didn't just put it into their general fund or pay salaries or put it in the bank?
Well, there is transparency from the standpoint. It's sort of a long way to transparency, but there is a thing called a 990, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's like your tax form
the
for
tax
nonprofits.
forms for nonprofits. Foundations have to complete it, and they have to fill out like who the dollars went through. That's sort of an after fact, sort of transparency compliance.
Right. Here's what we did.
Here's what we did. Exactly. But that is one way, right, to sort of verify where dollars go. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier around funders fund who they know and who they trust. And so these sort of larger organizations, they've built trust capital, with funders. And when funders are trying to be responsive, I genuinely believe, because I've seen it happen over and over and over again in the past, decade, that when communities are in crisis, funders genuinely want to respond and to meet community needs. And they don't always know the best way to do that. And so what their default is to go with the folks that we know, to go with the folks that we trust. And so this is what I meant by saying we have to close the social gap and the social capital gap and the trust capital gap, because when funders are trying to get dollars out the door quickly, it's very difficult to do that when you're meeting a whole new set of organizations for the first time. And so what they'll typically do is give it to a larger organization and trust that those organizations are going to do the regranting down to the smaller, more grassroots-based organizations. And I think what we have to watch for is whether or not those intermediary organizations are serving as facilitators, to be able to help those organizations deepen engagement, deepen their relationship capital with funders, or whether those organizations are serving more as sort of blocks, to being able to access sort of deeper relationship building within community. This whole notion around trends and sort of funding what's trendy at the time. My biggest critique in philanthropy around this is that funders tend to fund visible pain. And so the pain that is most visible in community at the moment is what is going to get the most attention and is what is going to then therefore get the most resources. But doing that ignores all of the invisible pain that hasn't gone away. It's just not what's in the headlines. It's not what's the most visibly present at the time. So this is what I mean by having more muscle memory, being able to build better practices around equity, because when you have a way of operating, a way of sort of built-in operational practices around equity, then you can hold both things at the same time. You can hold funding the visible pain and being responsive to that, and you can also hold funding and responding to invisible pain that is not, the headlines that are happening every single day. And so being able to hold those two things is a muscle that funders need to build, that our county, our municipalities, they need to be able to build the muscle around holding the truth of both visible pain and invisible pain and how to resource both.
And then there's another piece of this is which I brought up, which is nonprofits changing, their stripes to fit the crisis. And so how do we, the public, and how do the funders identify those folks that have been doing that work, like folks who have been in Altadena doing aid support, instead of, and this may upset some people, it may be an unpopular opinion, but I will never, ever donate to the Red Cross again. Because I have seen them too many times. Oh, it's for Haiti, it's for this, it's for that. And then you go and you find out they messed it up, or the money didn't make it to the people on the ground. And if I'm trying to donate to folks in Altadena, I don't, I want to be sure that's really what's happening.
That's where it's going.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do we, the public and the foundations, know who's changing their stripes and who's legitimately doing that work?
So I think this is both a cultural truth, right? Like what I have found in my work in philanthropy in the nonprofit sector is that Black folks want to fund Black folks, right? Like we want to make sure that our dollars are going to the felt needs that are existing in the Black community, right?
Yep.
And we want to be able to verify, we want receipts. Like where are those dollars going? So this is why one of the criteria that we have around our work is to be both Black-led and Black empowering. And that was really intentional language that Black organizational leaders gave us to use, and that it was beyond Black serving, particularly because of what you're just naming, that organizations sometimes can say that they are serving the Black community, but that might be the smallest percentage of the folks that are being served by that organization. And so giving to an organization that is serving Black folks, but not empowering the Black community and not empowering their voice and empowering, our self-determination, that's a distinction, right? And so a lot of times funders will come to an organization like Social Good Solutions because we do have such a large sort of network of, over 200 plus Black-led organizations that we serve across the state, most of which are located here in Southern California. And so a lot of times they will come to sort of trusted messengers and trusted folks in community to ask, who should we be giving to? Because again, in an environment where they're trying to respond rapidly and deploy resources rapidly, they don't always know. I mean, this is exactly what happened in the aftermath of George Floyd, when all of the racial reckoning was happening, and funders had this epiphany around, we're not doing enough for the Black community. And what they recognized was, but we don't even have relationships with folks in the Black community. And what they did is they said, oh, but we know Kaci, and Kaci knows Black folks, so let's talk to Kaci about how we can get money out to the Black community. And that's really how we became sort of known as this trusted broker, because the work that we did was about helping funders to make smarter decisions around how they deploy resources into the Black community, into the hands of folks who are really doing work on the ground. And so it's efforts like what Mark Philpart at the Black Freedom Fund has done, to make sure that resources are going directly into the grassroots organizations in Altadena, funding the accountability, around response to Altadena recovery and things of that nature. This is the infrastructure that we need in the Black community to be able to have institutions that have folks who work in community, have trusted relationships with folks who are on the ground, and can help be the translators for funders who don't always have those relationships.
Talking with Kaci Patterson. Social Good Solutions is her organization, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in Black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized. The families who watched their inheritance disappear. The wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. The midterm election campaign season is here now. The 2028 presidential election is right around the corner. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. It's all in for 2026 and 2028. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
He's the son of a school teacher and Navy veteran who built a company worth billions and walked away from it. Tom Steyer, pledging to give away half of everything he earned to charity and fight for Californians. So when out-of-state corporations weren't paying their fair share of taxes, Tom Steyer led the fight for Prop 39 and won, earning California billions of dollars for our schools. Tom took on Big Oil to stop them polluting our air and water and smash them. Tom fought for free school lunches so no child goes hungry. Tom Steyer, strong enough to take on the special interests crushing us with the cost of living. As governor, Tom will stop Wall Street from buying up middle-class homes, lower utility rates by 25%, and ban corporate PAC money from our politics. Other politicians talk. Tom Steyer gets it done. Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Kaci Patterson is with me in the studio, which is always a good thing. Nice to see people face to face. Social Good Solutions is your organization, socialgoodsolutions.com. First of all, who would want to reach out to you? What kind of nonprofit? What kind of individual? Is it a person that's well established? Someone that's trying to start a nonprofit? Who should reach out to you?
So a lot of the work that we do is around initiative management. So a lot of our clients are actually philanthropies that are trying to get resources out to the Black community at scale.
So funders and foundations should reach out to you.
Predominantly, those are our clients. And so we've been able to, over the past decade, we've raised and leveraged over $86 million for Black-led organizations in the state of California. And that's a big number. It's a big number. We are actually the largest mobilizer of philanthropic resources to the Black community in the last 10 years. And that's because we're raising money at scale for initiatives that hold multiple Black-led organizations. And so that's on everything from Black infant and maternal health to geographic-based work that's happening out in the IE. We have an initiative or an organization that we started called the Black Equity Collective, which supports 65 Black-led and empowering organizations here in LA and in the Inland Empire, and they work across 16, 17 different issue areas. And so we work predominantly with philanthropies around how to deploy resources, but we also do a fair amount of strategic advising so that organizations that are looking to sort of figure out how to embed equity into their operational practices, we work with them to provide them thought partnership about how to do that.
So we can find you at socialgoodsolutions.com, and where else might we find you?
LinkedIn, that's my platform of choice. But we're also on Instagram, and we are the firm. I'm personally on LinkedIn, and the firm is also on LinkedIn as well at Social Good Solutions, and on Instagram at Social Good Solutions. But you can find me personally on LinkedIn at Kaci Patterson.
So, you said we were talking off the air about helping to design some of these foundations and philanthropic organizations, and this idea of not just from the philanthropic side, but from the community side about designing the implementation of resources. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the best example that I have of this is with the Black infant and maternal health work. When the county wanted to launch what is now called the Village Fund, the decision was that we wanted to actually have Black women at the center of the design of the fund itself. And so that's essentially what happened. It was Black women who had been doing birth justice work, who had both lived experience, personal lived experience, but also professional experience in this regard, who actually sat around the table for 9 months during COVID and the virtual table for 9 months during COVID and designed the Village Fund. Not only did they design how the fund would operate, how it would fund the work, who it would fund, who would be eligible for funding, so on and so forth. They then became part of what is now a community review body where all decisions about how those resources get deployed are ceded to them. This is very uncommon in philanthropy. Most of the time, the folks who have the money make the decisions. And so a lot of the work that we do at Social Good Solutions is around community co-design. So we're creating these models and infrastructure around how we do community co-design at scale, how it can be replicated across issue area and geography. So every single initiative that we manage, we actually do it from a co-design process where it's not only the funders who are designing, but it's the Black leaders who are doing the work in community, working together to design the contours of the initiative, how the funding operates, and how the resources get deployed. And we get better decisions as a result of it.
So if I'm a nonprofit and we don't have much time, but I got to ask this. If I'm a nonprofit and I'm trying to figure out where to go for my so-called capacity building, how do I know that organization or initiative is legit?
Oh, such a good question. Well, I would say talk to others in the field. You know, the best way to vet, who's legit is to ask others if they've worked with them and, to get their endorsements from others who have been in the work.
And I would imagine the same thing with fiscal sponsorships.
Oh, absolutely. We could have a whole separate conversation about fiscal sponsorships.
I've been learning some eye-opening things about that.
Yeah, we actually are doing a training certification program for fiscal sponsors that are really about the principles for Black equity. So how to help fiscal sponsors do their work from a participatory perspective.
Well, Kaci Patterson, it's been great talking with you. And folks, if you want to find out more, I guess you should just go on the website, socialgoodsolutions.com, or go to LinkedIn, your fave, right?
That's my favorite. Find me there. Yeah.
Yeah, and just do a little reading on your own. And it sounds like there's a whole community or a whole sort of school of thought emerging that a lot of nonprofits and foundations could really benefit from.
That's right. And find us. We've got grant opportunities that folks can learn more about. So blackequitycollective.org is one. villagefundla.org is another. For folks out in the Inland Empire, visit the Inland Empire Community Foundation, i.e., Inland Empire Community, IECF.org, just trying to get their acronym together to learn more about the Black Equity Fund out in the Inland Empire.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Wealth Building Wednesday is next. We're talking money today on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Colt Gray, father of the Appalachia High School shooting suspect in Winder, Georgia, has been found guilty on all 29 counts tied to the 2024 attack that killed 4. Lead prosecutor Brad Smith explains why the mother wasn't charged.
She did not have custody of Colt. She did not have proximity to Colt, and she was not the one that provided him the firearms.
He's now the third parent convicted after a mass shooting by a child. Bill Cosby is trying to block several women from testifying in a new sexual assault lawsuit. Court filings say he also wants past misconduct claims kept out as Donna Motziger pursues her 1972 assault case. And the University of Colorado is mourning quarterback Dominic Ponder, who died in a single-car crash early Sunday near campus. Police say his vehicle hit a guardrail and tumbled down an embankment. Coach Deion Sanders called Ponder a born leader who was loved and respected. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Visit Hard Rock Casino Tejon for the $500,000 Luck of the Irish BMW drawing. Drawings every Thursday in March. Hard Rock Casino Tejon, the closest casino to downtown LA. The excitement starts here at the new Hard Rock Tejon.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers won their third straight. They beat New Orleans 110-101 Tuesday night at Crypto.com. 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists for Luka Doncic. LeBron had 21 points and 7 assists. The Clippers are at home tonight against Indiana. The Pacers come to town with a 6-game losing streak and the worst record in the Eastern Conference. They were in the NBA Finals